even when you talk about like breeding fetish or saying stuff about that during sex, like it's sexy to us as a thought, but that's not the actual purpose it's being said. Like somebody could say that and still pull out, or somebody could say that and still be on birth control. And actually, I guess I should mention that as well. So, it's weird that as humans, we have like a non-reproductive sexuality, right? Because everybody knows, like, okay, we have supposedly, I actually question this, but a biological drive, quote unquote, instinct to reproduce and whatever, have babies that way. And people kind of reduce sexuality to that oftentimes. Probably the most conservative people do that for good ideological reasons. They have good ideological reasons for doing it. But it's kind of taken as a given that our sexuality stems from evolution and from biology and drives, and that we just, like, women don't want it that much, and the men want it too much, but that's just because they got evolutionary programmed to have as many kids as they want, so they go around fucking everybody, and like that's what male sexuality is. That's obviously super reductive because people have sex not for kids. Most sex that happens, most sexuality that happens has nothing to do with actual gestation and childbirth and the prospect of what those kids will be in the future. It's completely unrelated. Even when you talk about like breeding fetish or saying stuff about that during sex, like it's sexy to us as a thought, but that's not the actual purpose it's being said. Like somebody could say that and still pull out, or somebody could say that and still be on birth control. And actually, they might go on birth control in order to be able to do like breeding fetish roleplay or whatever.
Yeah.
So sexuality is this like really weird thing that seems like it's perpetuated by our psychic mechanisms, and it isn't fully rational. People try to say that it's fully rational by explaining it as just reproduction, but it's not. It doesn't really fit. It doesn't make sense there. And religion historically has served to disguise this problem by basically saying like, okay, well, you can't have non-procreative sex, and if we are able to enforce this, then that means that sexuality will only be procreative and not procreative. Well, that only works as long as you like are physically and culturally like having all these like strict mechanisms for it. If you don't have those strict mechanisms in a more natural state, ironically, we revert to non-natural sexuality. Right? We revert to like non-reproductive, like weird, kinky stuff. So there's something very special and irrational about sexuality that doesn't fit even in which it tries to explain. But yeah, so I guess that was even like the first few topics. I mentioned also attention economy. Okay, why did I mention attention economy? Because again, our unconscious minds are producing the thoughts that are most meaningful to our ego in a way, that between the structures of the id and the superego that aren't fully conscious. So if you notice, actually, let me pull this back up.
When we're on this topic, I want to talk about social contagion theory, just somewhere in this attention economy, because I feel like it is kind of interrelated here. But yeah, please go ahead. You were just taking a minute to put the picture.
So do you see how the superego and the id are both together? The majority of it is both together under the conscious level. So the conscious is above the water, that's unconscious is below. Also notice there's a level called what did they say in this one? Pre-conscious.
Is that what it says outside the iceberg? It's just hard to read those. Do you have like a thing on your wall that's like unconscious, pre-conscious, and conscious?
So id and the superego are both massively under the water, and they're kind of tied together. So what that implies, our base cardinal desires are actually somehow at the same time tied to the moralistic cultural impositions that society organizes us by. Both of those things exist in the unconscious, and both of them come together to generate the thoughts that end up at the conscious level, where the ego is kind of managing and deciding like what to do with them. So what that kind of implies again is that it's not just like our animalistic nature that's coming up through our stuff that's unconscious, it's also like societal cultural institutions and impositions and morality that's also part of our, what is felt as our unconscious. And even sometimes like, it could be felt as like an instinctual biological drive because it's coming as this kind of compulsion to do something, but it's actually not related to animality. It's related to social, human, like unnatural things, because both the id and the superego are fused together at that level. And so the unconscious mind is generating thoughts, sending them to your conscious deciding what to do with them. Your conscious experience is basically what you pay attention to in your experience of life. Obviously, if you go outside and there's like shit happening that is maybe catching your attention, that could be related to something that's more animalistic, like maybe food or something that you kind of are craving. Could be something that's more like watching for danger, like, okay, you're going to cross the street, you need to watch for cars. Obviously, your kind of attention is diverted there because there's like potentially an existential issue if you you cross the street without looking. So your brain is kind of taking care of like, what should I care about in the moment? What matters to me? This is what I should be focused on. And it just sort of happens over time. Obviously, we have some control of it, but you can even say that you feel compelled to go check your phone and look at your notifs, or
These are
you
things that are
feel...
taught to us, though, right? If I think about the reason I look both ways when I cross the street, I'm thinking of when I was a 2 or 3 year old and I heard like look left and then right and then left again to make sure you don't get hit by a car.
Okay, let's say you live in a country with you lived in a village, you were born in a village in Africa, no roads. You move over to a different place. Yeah, there's suddenly like roads and cars moving. You maybe saw somebody get hit by a car. You know that it's a 2-ton steel machine moving at like 100 miles per hour. It's very dangerous. I mean, okay, like intuitively, nobody told you need to look whichever way. But
fair.
It's something that'll develop and happen if you're conscious and learning about the world, regardless of like specifically telling you. Although there are stuff that people tell you as well. I mean, like I said, unconscious mechanism includes base animal drives, instincts, and whatever else. Plus the whole cultural stuff that people told you both come up. But there's a certain attention economy to what people care about beyond that kind of stuff that I mentioned, like outside and food or whatever. And that's specifically for things like politics, things like religion, things like gender and sexuality. Like, why is it that the best rage bait content online has to do with like modern dating? Men are so ridiculous for doing X, women are so ridiculous for doing Y. This is like the greatest like discourse that gets you tons and tons of views on every social media, right? That is a topic that catches a lot of attention because it has a lot of, what I would maybe call like phallic value or sexual value, like sexual market value, whatever. There's things related to that and sexuality that matter. Okay, what are other things like politics? Okay, politics matters a lot because it has to do with, again, like identity, control of resources distribution, and even maybe meanings of sexuality and what's possible there. Those are the kinds of things that our unconscious mind is gravitating towards always, is like, okay, what are the most important things at this like higher ideal abstract level that isn't just space for things, but like, more significant somehow. It's politics, spirituality, and sexuality, basically. Other like existential type issues about the world. Maybe if you're concerned about, again, the climate change and the world ending, that's kind of existential and maybe related to like death. But all of those things are kind of dealing with like the most significant things that we as humans have to worry about in the modern world.